Thank you. I think it was Peter Drucker who said, if you can't measure it, you can't grow it. So it's important that we actually measure our internet. Can we all stand up? Please. Stretch your hands and then say hello to the person sitting next to you. If you want to give them a hug, do that as well. Right? Thank you very much. Any questions for Ripe? Any questions? You can sit down now. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll add some questions later. Diana, come and talk to us about loan. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, again. Earlier on, I mentioned that you get to know a little bit more about me when I give my presentation. My name is Dianah Ajuna, and my presentation is on Africa's role in promoting internet governance. Before I give the presentation, let me give you a brief background about myself. I'm a cyber lawyer and currently a PhD in law student at University of Ottawa. My area of focus or specialization is on international laws on cybercrime and internet governance models. Now that shouldn't scare you because I have no technical background at all, and my presentation is not going to be anything technical. But then I'm also working as a researcher with OpenAIR, which is Open Africa Innovation Research Network at University of Ottawa, Faculty of Law. And also I'm a member of the executive of the Canadian Association for African Studies. I'm also the founder of ICT Law Center in Uganda that basically promotes the ICT law or cyber law or technology law field in Uganda. And then also I'm an enrolled advocate of the High Court and all the subordinate courts in Uganda. I also do volunteer. I volunteer to be a co-chair of the African Internet Summit Program Committee. So I quite do a number of things. As I mentioned earlier on, my presentation is not going to be technical. And I'm really bad at technical stuff. Yeah, I want to go to the next one. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you for that. So internet governance for most people has been defined as names and numbers, which is actually meaning inclined on the technical bit. But then internet governance by the Internet Society has been broadly defined to include a number of aspects where all of us or most of us do fall. And it includes a whole range of principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs that shape the underlying internet and its use for information communication and commerce. And when I talk about this includes everything that we all do on the internet. For example, the norms would be the practices by individuals on the internet. Africa as a continent would play a big role or plays a big role in promoting internet governance because we do take part in decision-making procedures, and most of the African states have had a whole range of principles that do govern the internet. And also given the fact that we are here giving the discussions, we do have the programs that shape the underlying internet and the use of the information communication. However, internet governance also involves a collection of actors. These include, of course, the governments, and in Africa, that would be the African government, the private sector, governments working with the private sector, or the private sector operators working on their own to establish these rules that I mentioned earlier on. However, establishing the rules is not enough. It's also very important to enforce the public policy and resolve disputes that involve multiple jurisdictions. When I speak of Africa as a continent, we all know that we have different countries, and that means that involves different jurisdictions. And the nature of the internet would involve usage that cuts across all these countries. So it's also very important to understand how to enforce such policies once they have been formulated within these different jurisdictions. The collection of by African governments would involve international cooperation. We've seen that happen in different African countries. However, it needs to be strengthened because it is something that we have not yet reached at 100% level. We may not reach at 100%, but it's important to strengthen the international cooperation. So the international cooperation would include the regional cooperation that we do have, and also far beyond the borders of the regional cooperation by having mutual assistance treaties, treaties which are agreements whereby the countries do abide by standard rules or they agree to abide by standard rules, and strong collaboration. We have so many actors, but then we need to strengthen our collaboration within the African country. Already we do have the collaboration, but then we need to strengthen in a way so that we can be able to promote internet governance. The strengthening would include sharing information, resources, and also expertise. As you all know, that is one thing that is globally a challenge, having expertise in specific areas. However, it's important to share the expertise in the African countries so that we can be able to strengthen the collaboration and be able to have better internet governance. Also, it's important for African government to strengthen the already existing government agencies with specialization in internet governance, and also establish the ones that do not exist. Examples would be cybersecurity departments, privacy departments, and cyber departments, among others. Also, it's important to provide education to different communities and also create awareness. When I mean by creating awareness, I don't mean that you call people who already have the knowledge on internet governance and you create awareness to them, but also spread it further to people who have no idea about internet governance, the rules and the norms and the procedures in internet governance. It's also very important African communities to train the executives in internet governance. Executives, I mean government officials who have a strong say in policy formulation, and also the judiciary who end up having interpretation of laws, and also, of course, the legislature that takes a big role in forming the laws, and also law enforcement officials. It's very important to train them in internet governance as they are key stakeholders in this. Also, it's important, well, African governments, of course, have already we already have public policy in internet governance. However, we have to strengthen the ones which are people-centered, protect internet users, and also be able to protect the human rights of online users, the internet. In regards to the private sector, we need to encourage private-public partnership. They do already exist, but we do need to strengthen them I know that the private sector has stronger expertise in internet governance and has also stronger enforcement power in internet governance, and also dialogue between internet companies and stakeholders that are government stakeholders. In regards to the rules and procedures, where now I would fall, it's very important to understand the rules in internet governance, cybercrime, and also include economic crimes. Usually when we're talking about cybercrime, we always think about the obvious, cyber stalking and the rest. We always forget the economic crimes, which are very important. So African governments need to ensure that in their cybercrime legislation, in promoting cybersecurity, need to include the economic crimes and also promote the existing and strengthen the existing treaties or conventions within the African states. One of them that you probably haven't heard of is the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. It's not yet enforced, and that is because for it to be enforced, 15 countries have to ratify it. But unfortunately, only 4 African countries have ratified the AU Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. So as African governments, we need to promote our own legislation and conventions that we have so as to be able to strengthen our internet governance and be able to create awareness so that we can have our own laws and conventions and collaborations between the states. Privacy and data protection rules too. We need to have uniform rules as African states so that we can have a standard and be able to connect with each other in the internet world. Since most of the internet is open and it's borderless, so for us to be able to promote internet governance in Africa, we should have strong privacy and data protection rules that cut across all African states with the same standard. And also, we need to strengthen the relationship between state authorities and intermediaries. And this is common with African countries, some African countries, where we have human rights obligations and responsibilities not known by the state authorities and also intermediaries. It's very important to also have uniform standards that cut across African countries. In conclusion, internet governance is broader than just names and numbers, and it's important to understand that it encompasses all these aspects that we need to think about, and everyone is a key stakeholder. As long as you're an online user, you're a key stakeholder in internet governance. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dan. Any questions? Yes, please approach the mic, please. Can you just line up on the mic? I see you.